What's up, YouTube? I'm here to do my prediction video for UFC Fight Night Hall versus Silva. Let's start them on. The first fight is John Mills versus Kevin Natividad, I think is how you say his name. To me, this is both just two good strikers with decent wrestling. I think that this could honestly go either way. It's a really tough fight because I think it's going to be super close, but I'm slightly leaning towards John Mills. I think he's just a little bit better technically in both the boxing and the wrestling. I think it's a super close fight, but I'm just edging him to win at least a 29-28 decision. Next is Courtney Casey versus Priscilla. I can't say her last name. And to me, striking-wise, it's about even, but I think Courtney Casey has a massive advantage on the ground against Priscilla. I think Priscilla probably hits a little bit harder. Casey's probably a little bit faster, but I really don't think it matters. I don't think Priscilla has the greatest takedown defense. And like I said, I think if Courtney's on top of her, or even if she's underneath her, I just think Courtney Casey's just way better on the ground. I think Courtney's going to win by first or second round submission. Next is Dustin Jacoby versus Justin Jacoby versus Justin Ledet. And to me, this is like Justin Ledet's an okay boxer, and Dustin Jacoby is a really good kickboxer. Ledet's probably a little bit better of a grappler, but I think Jacoby's got good enough takedown defense where that's not going to matter. And I think this fight's mainly just going to be a striking fight. And I'm just leaning towards Jacoby. I think that his overall striking is better, and I think the fact that he attacks with everything, he just needs to pace himself. As long as he paces himself, I think he'll win either a strong decision or get a late TKO. But either way, I'm leaning towards Dustin Jacoby to win by decision. Next is Cole Williams versus Jason Witt. And to me, I think both these guys are really well-rounded. Jason Witt's probably a little bit better of a wrestler. I think Cole's a little bit better of a striker. To me, the biggest thing is Jason's been knocked out a bunch of times. Cole, he's a little bit older, but I think he's a little bit better overall, other than the wrestling. It's kind of like, can Jason just keep hitting him with the wrestling and win a decision, or will Cole be able to mix in the jiu-jitsu and the striking and win by finish? And I'm just leaning towards Cole. I just feel like he's a little bit more durable and his striking is a little bit better. As long as he doesn't get controlled super easily, which I don't think he will, he should be able to win this fight by knockout. So I'm leaning towards Cole to win by knockout TKO in the second or third round. Next is Sean Strickland versus Jack Marshman. And this all depends on if Jack can kind of close the distance. I think Sean just kind of wants to outpoint him from the outside, as where Jack kind of wants to get on the inside and throw big bombs. It's really tough because I think Sean has been out for so long, and it's hard to tell how good he's going to look coming back after that long, and because of that, I'm leaning towards Jack. Like I said, I think overall the ground game is probably better for Sean than Jack, but he's not like an amazing wrestler. He's got decent jiu-jitsu. I think Jack, as long as he's smart about how he attacks him, he should be able to set the takedowns. And like I said, I just prefer Jack's power to Sean's, point fighting kind of style of striking. I also feel like at middleweight, Sean's just a little bit slower and doesn't hit guys as hard. I think at welterweight, he's a little bit heavier hitter. And because of that, I'm leaning towards Jack. I think if he can get through the long punches, he'll win by knockout. Next is Adrian Yanez versus Victor Rodriguez. And Adrian Yanez is 11-3. I'm pretty sure it's Adrian when I looked it up. If it's not, one of these guys has a record of 11-3. The other guy's like 4-2. I'm pretty sure Adrian Yanez is 11-3. This is obviously a short notice fight, and Yanez is going to walk through Victor. I think he's got the much better grappling, especially. Like, Victor's an okay boxer. He's got 4 wins by KO. And he is on a 4-fight win streak, but no matter what, I think if Adrian's just smart and uses his grappling, he'll win by submission in the first or second round. I think he's the significantly better grappler, and this fight won't be close as long as he just times a good takedown. Next is Chris Gritzmacher versus Alexander Hernandez, and I legitimately think this fight could go either way. I think both these guys look good. My biggest fear is Chris Gritzmacher hasn't fought in like a year or two. As for Hernandez, even though he's been up and down, he's only been fighting guys that are like either in the top 15 or outside the top 15. I think that they both fight at a really high pace. They're both really good wrestlers, but I think that Hernandez is a little bit better of a wrestler. And I think that that's going to be the biggest difference. Is I think that if they're ever tying up, Hernandez can use his better wrestling to kind of edge out the rounds. And even though I think this fight's going to be close and I think it's going to be back and forth overall, I just feel like Hernandez is better overall wrestling. He's going to edge him out the close rounds, and he's either going to win a 29-28 decision or a 30-27 decision for Hernandez. Next is Bobby Green versus Thiago Moises. And to me, I feel like this fight's going to be like what the Michael Johnson fight was, minus the heel hook. I think that Bobby Green's just a much better striker and the much better overall wrestler. And I think other than Moises, pulling him into his guard and like catching him in a submission, which I think is even harder against Green because I think his submission defense is significantly better than Michael Johnson's. I just see Green being able to do the exact same thing that Michael was doing before the heel hook. I think he just outpoints him on the feet. I don't know if he knocks him out, but I just think he wins a pretty dominant 30-27 decision. Next is Marcus Green versus Greg Hardy, and this is kind of like... So I feel like Marcus Green's got the better overall kicks. I think Greg Hardy's got the overall better hands. I think that the longer this goes, the more it favors Hardy, because I think Green tends to drop his hands when he gets tired. But the biggest thing for me is the grappling. I think that Greg Hardy has good takedown defense against wrestlers. I don't know how good his takedown defense is going to look against Marcus Green's kind of like jiu-jitsu style takedowns. And the biggest thing for me is if Marcus Green is smart, he'll take this to the ground, because I think whether he's on top or on bottom, he's got a big advantage. I think his jiu-jitsu is a lot better than Greg Hardy's overall grappling game is. And I think other than Marcus getting caught with a big shot early, if he's smart about this and uses his jiu-jitsu, I think he'll win. If it's a kickboxing match, I'm leaning towards Hardy. Because like I said, I think even if he loses the first round or 2 rounds, once Green starts to lower his hands, I think Hardy will be able to hit him with a big shot. So I'm going to go with Green. I think he's smart. I think he takes this to the ground. If he does, I think he's going to win by sub in the first or second round. Next is Kevin Holland versus Charlie. I can't say his last name. And Charlie's just a super mediocre striker. Most of his losses are by TKO. I think Kevin Holland's just going to piece this dude up. Like, this is a really short notice fight where Kevin Holland's basically just getting free money. Like, I'd be shocked if he lost this fight. He's got to be one of the biggest favorites in the entire year going into this fight. So I think this is just a kickboxing match, and if it ever gets to the ground, Kevin Holland's going to submit him right away. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think Kevin Holland's just a much better striker, and I think he eventually knocks him out in the first round. Next is Andre Fili versus Bryce Mitchell, and my biggest thing is I think that if Bryce kind of takes this to the ground, he's going to dominate. We've seen Fili has not the greatest submission defense. He has good takedown defense, but when he's on the ground, high-level jiu-jitsu guys tend to kind of catch him and stuff. And I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think that Bryce, if he kickbox with him, Fili's obviously going to win. He's much better there. But if Bryce is able to get to the ground, I think he's just the significantly better grappler. And I think he's going to win by sub in the first or second round. This is what I see happening. I think he's smart. He times a good takedown and catches Fili in a submission. Finally, the main event, Uriah Hall versus Anderson Silva. This is basically 2 kickboxers going at it, but I feel like Anderson Silva has gone slower and more injury-prone the later his career has gone on. His last couple of fights, it feels like he can't absorb leg kicks very well on the leg that broke. And I think if Uriah Hall's smart, he'll just throw a lot of leg kicks. Anderson Silva's never been a high-volume guy, and I think in a 5-round fight, it favors Hall. I do think Silva has the better conditioning, but I just think his durability factor, it just favors Hall. I don't think Anderson Silva's, ever shot for a takedown. Like, if he was smart, he would consider it, because I think on the ground, Silva's got a massive advantage. But I know that's never going to happen, despite the fact that, realistically, if he did it, it's entirely possible he might hit a takedown just because Uriah Hall wouldn't expect it. And on the ground, I think he has a real shot at winning. But on the feet, like I said, I just think that his leg especially hasn't been doing good recently. And I think if Uriah Hall is smart, he'll just attack that. And even if he doesn't, I just think Anderson Silva has not been very active with his striking as of late. He kind of is doing what happens to a lot of older fighters, where they just are kind of gun-shy and they don't fire shots like they used to. And it's just one of those things. Other than Anderson Silva catching Hall in a submission or with like a big strike, I think Hall is going to either win by TKO from leg kicks or just win a pretty dominant 50-45 decision. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.